Today, we have an exciting tutorial in store for you. Get ready to dive into the world of e-commerce website development using Laravel, one of the most powerful PHP frameworks out there. In this comprehensive course, we'll guide you through the process of building a full-fledged e-commerce website from scratch. But before we jump right in, let's quickly go over the prerequisites to ensure you're all set to embark on this exciting journey. First and foremost, you should have a basic understanding of PHP and web development concepts. Familiarity with Laravel will be a huge plus, but don't worry if you're new to it, we'll cover everything you need to know. Now, let's talk about what you can expect from this course. We'll be diving deep into Laravel's powerful features to build a robust backend for our e-commerce website. You'll learn how to create APIs, implement JWT authentication for secure user interactions, and even set up an admin authentication system. By the end of this course, you'll have the skills and knowledge to create your own e-commerce websites using Laravel, empowering you to turn your ideas into reality and potentially even start your own online business. So, whether you're a seasoned developer looking to expand your skill set or a beginner eager to learn the ropes of e-commerce website development, this course is perfect for you. Get ready to unlock your creativity, unleash your coding prowess, and join us on this exciting journey to build an e-commerce website using Laravel. Now let's run our application and see what we will get after we end the course. First, let's use the PHP artisan serve command to run the server. Then we will go to Postman to test our APIs. First, we will use the API auth register endpoint to create a new user. Then we will change the endpoint to login and login with the user that we just created. Then we will get the access token and put it in the auth section so that our application knows who is the logged in user. Let's first go to our database to make the user an admin so we can use admin privileges. And next we will get all the brands that we have using this endpoint, but we still don't have any brands, so we will add a new brand using the store endpoint. Then we will add a new category using the category endpoint. Let's get all the categories using the index endpoint to see the category that we just added. Then let's use the product endpoint to get all the products that we have, but we don't have any, so we need to add a product. But first let's add a location. We will use the location endpoint and add a street, building, and an area, and it will automatically add this location to the authenticated user. Then let's add a new product, and after we add the price, category ID, brand ID, and name, we will hit the send button and add a new product. But we forgot the image, so we will add an image and then the product is added. Now let's make a new order. Let's write the order body using raw JSON, but let's first remember what it needs. First it need order items, which is an array of objects. Inside of it we will add price, product ID, and quantity. Then we need total price, and then we need the date of delivery, and now our order is added. Let's try to change the order's status. We will need to pass the order ID in the URL, and the new status in the body, so let's say cancelled, and now the status has been changed. Now let's try to get the user's order. We will just pass the user ID in the URL, and we will get the orders of that user. Then let's try the get order items. We need to pass it in the URL the order ID, and then we will get the orders items. In the next video we will start by implementing the authentication using JWT. If you have any question, please leave a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Laravel content.
Hey everyone, today we are going to learn how to secure a Laravel API using JWT, and we will use Timon third-party JWT auth library. But first, what is JWT? JSON Web Token is an open standard, RFC 7519, and it represents a compact and self-contained method for securely transmitting information between parties as a JSON object. It authenticates the incoming request and provides an additional security layer to REST API, which is best for security purposes. First, let's add require our package, and I will link the website in the description below. And then after it is installed, let's go to our config app.php and add our providers, and then we need to publish it in our application. After that, we will generate our JWT secret, which is unique for every application. And now we will have to update our user model so it implements JWT. Then we need to go to our auth.php to configure our guards, so we will add the API guard and make its driver as JWT. So now when a user authenticate from an API, it will use JWT, and the provider is users. That means it will check the user model for the authentication. Now let's make our auth controller. So first of all, in the login, we are validating the fields that we want, and then throw an error if it fails or attempt to authenticate the user if it succeeds. If the user credentials are right, we will make a new JWT token and authenticate the user. If not, we will return an error message to the user. Our register function is doing the same things with the validation. And if it's true, we will create a new user and hash the password and store it in the database. The logout destroys the token, making it invalid and make the user log out from the application. The refresh create a new token for the authenticated user. User profile returns the user's info and the create new token returns the info of the token and the info of the authenticated user. Then we need to register our functions in the routes using middleware of API and a prefix of auth. And now let's test our application and see how it works using Postman. But first, we need to make a new database. So let's set the name of our database, and then we go to our PHP, my admin, and create a new database. And then we run the migration command, which is php artisan migrate. And now we have our database ready for testing. Let's run our application using php artisan serve and go to Postman to test it. First, we will put our local host URL, and then our middleware and prefix, and then our fields, so we can create a new user since our database is empty. Okay, let's remove the password confirmation from the password validation. We don't need it. And then we run it again, and user is successfully registered. Now let's try to log in, and for login, we need email and password, and now our access token is generated and we are logged in successfully. Now we take our access token and put inside the authorization in Postman, and we set the type to bearer. And now we are logged in our application using this token. Thank you for watching to the end. If you like this type of content, check my channel for more Laravel content and hit the subscribe button.
Now we will make the brands table. We will use the php artisan make migration command and we will name it create brands table. In the migration, there will already be the ID and timestamps, and we will add the name and of type string. Then after that, we will make our model using the php artisan make model brands. And then we will make the brands controller using php artisan make controller. In the brand model, we will write the fiable that is the name of the columns in the database that we will add or update. And we only have the name, so protected fiable name. And now, let's use the protected hidden for the created at and updated at columns. As the users don't need to see the created at and updated at columns, so we will put them in the hidden. Now let's move to the controller. In our brands controller, the first function is the index function. We will use it to retrieve all the brands that we have in our database. So first we will call the brands model, and then we will use the all method to retrieve all the brands. But what if the frontend wants to use pagination? Then we will use the paginate method instead of the all method, and we will set it to 10. And then, we will return a response.json with all the brands that we just retrieved. For our next function, we will use the show, public function show, and we will pass it the ID that we will use. In the show function, we will retrieve the brand that we had. In the show function, we will retrieve the brand with the ID that we just passed using the find method, as we will define a brand variable, and we will use the brand's model, and then use the find method, and we pass it the ID that we just passed in the function. Now if there is a brand, we will return response.json with the brand that we just retrieved. But if we didn't find the brand, we will return just a message with brand not found. Now for our next function. We will use the function store, and we will pass it the request object. The request object is used to get the data that the frontend just passed to us. So first, we will validate the data. We will see if the request contained a name. We will make it required, and we want it to be unique, as we don't get duplicate brands in our database. Then, we will create a new brand object from the brand model, and we will add the name to it and save it. That is how we can store the new brand to our database. Then we will return a response.json with the message that the brand is added. We will use a try-catch and catch any exceptions that we got, and we will return response.json with the exception that we received, if there is any errors. For our next function, it will be the update brand function. We will pass it the ID of the brand and the request object. We will validate the request object that it contains the name, and we will make it required. Then, we will find the brand that we have the ID, and we will update it with the name that we got from the request. We will return a response JSON that the brand is updated. If there are any exceptions, we will return response JSON with the exception that we got. For our next function, it will be the delete brand function. We will pass it the ID of the brand that we want to delete, and then we will find that brand and delete it. And then we will return a response JSON if the brand is not found. But if it was found, we will return a response JSON that the brand is deleted. Now, let's go to our routes to define the routes that we just made. To define the functions that we just created. In our API.php, first we will define the index function using the root get. We will pass it the index, and we will use the brand's controller class, and then the name of the function, and the same things for the show, store, update, brand, and delete brand. But the show, update, and delete, we will pass it another query parameter, and that will be the ID of the brand. And the methods of the store will be post, as we are storing data, and we are getting data. The delete will be delete. The update brand will be put. But there is a shorter and cleaner way to write our routes. We can use the route controller, as we will pass it the controller that we use, that is the branch controller, and then we will use the group as, we will group those routes that we just defined, and we will remove the controllers from it. And now let's make our categories table. First we will make migrations using a PHP artisan make migrations command, and then our controller and our model. In our categories migrations we will add name and image as strings. And in our categories model it will be similar to the brands model, so we'll copy it and add the image to the fields. As for our controllers, the category controller is similar to the brand one, so we will copy it and edit the category controller. We will call the categories model instead of the brands model and adjust every name to the categories. We will add the image in the validation in the store function, and we will add the image in the validation of the update category function. After all our adjustments, we will need to use this block of code for the file upload for the image. In this code, it's first checking if there is a file in the assets uploads category. And then the category image, it's checking if there is already a file in there. If it exists, it will delete the file, and if it doesn't exist or after it's deleted, it will get the original extension from the file that we uploaded, and then it will add the file name and move the file into the assets upload categories. And we'll name it the file name, and then we will save the file name in the categories table at the image column. That is how we will upload an image. The assets upload category path will be created in the public folder after we upload our first. And we need to edit the update category code also for the image upload, and it will be the same as the store function, but we will have to edit the code a little bit, as we first will find the category and then we will check if there is an image. We will delete it and upload the new image that we just updated. And then let's go to our routes API with PHP to register the functions that we just created in the routes file. So we will use the same method as the brands. We will update the controller to category controller and update the functions names and endpoints to update category, delete category. And that's it for our video for today. We'll see you in the next one. Now let's create our locations table, model, and controller that we will need for the delivery of the orders. First, let's use the PHP artisan make migration command. Then we will make the location model and then our location controller. In our location table we will first have the user ID, and then we will need the street, building, and area, and they are all of type string. And now for our location model we will add fiable, and inside of it we will add our location table columns, area, user ID, street, and building. After that, we need to write our relationship between the user and the location model, so we will make a new public function. We will name it user, and then we will return this belongs to, and we will pass it two arguments. The first one is the user model and the second one is the foreign key, which is the user ID. But no, we need to add it in our migration, so we will go there and write foreign ID, and we specify the column which is user ID, and then we need to add the reference to it so that we specify on which column in the user table it will reference, so we will write ID, and then we specify on which table and we say users. And then on delete cascade, and that means when we delete the user, the location that is associated with it will be deleted. We'll dive into the location controller, where we'll implement the logic for storing, updating, and deleting location data in our API. Let's create the store method. This method handles the creation of new location records. In the store method, we start by validating the incoming request data. We ensure that street, building, and area fields are required. Next, we create a new location record in our database using the data provided in the request. We associate this location with the currently authenticated user by setting user_ID to the user's ID. Finally, we return a JSON response indicating that the location has been added, along with an HTTP status code of 201, created. Moving on to the update method. This method handles the updating of existing location records. In the update method, we begin with data validation, making sure street, building, and area are provided. We then attempt to find the location record with the given ID. If the location exists, we update its street, building, and area fields with the new values from the request and save the changes. Lastly, the destroy method. This method handles the deletion of location records. In the destroy method, we attempt to find the location record with the provided ID. If the location exists, we delete it from the database using the delete method. We return a JSON response indicating that the location has been updated. If the location with the provided ID is not found, we return a JSON response stating that the location was not found. That wraps up our location controller. It's responsible for handling the core functionality of our location API, including creating, updating, and deleting location records. Now let's make the product table, model, and controller using the same commands, but we need to add the location to our routes before going to the product. In this section, we'll define the routes in our API to connect with the location controller we created earlier. Routes act as endpoints that allow clients to interact with our API. Let's define the routes that correspond to the methods in our location controller. We start by creating a route group. This group allows us to apply common attributes and middleware to multiple routes. The store route is defined as a post request to the store endpoint. This route is responsible for creating a new location record using the store method in the location controller. Next, we have the update route, which is defined as a put request to the update ID endpoint. The update route is used to update an existing location record with a specific ID using the update method in the location controller. Finally, we define the destroy route as a delete request to the destroy ID endpoint. The destroy route is responsible for deleting a location record with a specific ID using the destroy method in the location controller. These routes serve as the entry points to our location API, allowing clients to perform create, update, and delete operations on location records. Now let's dive into the migration code for creating the products table. Inside the up method, we define the schema for the products table. We create the products table with various columns, such as ID, category_ID, brand_ID, name, is_trendy, is_available, price, amount, discount, image, and timestamps. We set default values and data types for each column. For instance, is_trendy defaults to false, and price is a double with 8 digits in total and 2 decimal places. We also define foreign key constraints for category_ID and brand_ID. We ensure that category_ID and brand_ID are foreign keys, and they reference the ID column in the category and brands tables, respectively. That's the migration code for creating the products table. Migrations provide a structured way to manage your database schema in Laravel. And now let's dive into the product model code. We specify the fiable property, which determines which attributes can be mass assigned. Here, we specify the attributes that can be mass assigned, including category_ID, brand_ID, name, price, discount, is_available, is_trendy, image, and amount. Next, we define relationships with other models. We create category and brand methods, each returning a belongs to relationship with the category and brand models, respectively. These relationships enable us to retrieve the category and brand associated with a product. That's the product model, which represents our product data structure and defines its relationships with other models. Models are an integral part of Laravel applications, and they help us interact with the database. Let's dive into the product controller code, starting with the index method. In the index method, we begin by retrieving a paginated list of product records. We use product paginate 10 to fetch the products in chunks of 10 per page. We check if there are products available. If there are, we return a JSON response with the product data and an HTTP status code of 200, OK. If no products are found, we return a JSON response indicating that there are no products. Now, let's explore the show method, which allows us to view a specific product by its ID. The show method is used to retrieve and display details of a specific product based on its ID. We attempt to find the product with the specified ID using product find ID. If the product is found, we return a JSON response with the product details and an HTTP status code of 200, OK. If the product is not found, we return a JSON response indicating that the product was not found. That's the index and show methods in our product controller. These methods allow us to retrieve and view product records. Inside the store method, we validate the incoming request data. We use the validator to ensure that the required fields, such as a name, price, category_ID, brand_ID, discount, amount, and image, are present and meet certain validation criteria. We create a new product instance and assign values to its properties. We instantiate a new product and populate its attributes with the validated data from the request. Now, let's handle the image upload. Here, we check if the request contains a file named image. If it does, we handle the image upload process. We determine the file path where the image should be stored and check if a file with the same name exists. If it does, we delete it to replace it with the new image. We get the uploaded file, extract its extension, and create a unique file name based on the current time. Then, we attempt to move the file to the specified location. If any exceptions occur during the file upload, we catch and handle them. Finally, we update the product-image property with the new file name. We save the product and return a response. After successfully handling the image upload and populating the product data, we save the product to the database and return a JSON response indicating that the product has been added with an HTTP status code of 201, created. That's the store method in our product controller. It not only adds a new product to the database but also manages image uploads. Let's dive into the update method, which allows us to modify existing product records. In the update method, we start with data validation to ensure that the request contains the required fields and meets validation criteria. We then attempt to find the product record by its ID using product find ID. If the product exists, we update its attributes with the validated data from the request, similar to the store method. We also handle image upload in the same way as in the store method. Finally, we save the updated product and return a JSON response indicating that the product has been updated. Now, let's move on to the destroy method for deleting product records. The destroy method allows us to delete product records by their ID. We attempt to find the product with the specified ID. If it exists, we delete it using the delete method. We return a JSON response indicating that the product has been deleted. That's the update and destroy methods in our product controller, enabling us to update and delete product records as needed. We'll define the routes for our website. These routes will connect with the methods we've implemented in the product controller, allowing us to interact with product records. Let's start by creating the routes that correspond to the methods in our product controller. We begin by defining a route group. This group allows us to apply common attributes and middleware to multiple routes. The first route is the index route, defined as a GET request to the index endpoint. The index route is used to retrieve a paginated list of product records using the index method in the product controller. Next, we have the show route, defined as a GET request to the show ID endpoint. The show route allows us to view a specific product by its ID using the show method in the product controller. Moving on to the store route, which is defined as a post request to the store endpoint. The store route is responsible for adding a new product record using the store method in the product controller. Now, we have the update route, defined as a put request to the update ID endpoint. The update route allows us to modify an existing product record with a specific ID using the update method in the product controller. Finally, we define the destroy route as a delete request to the destroy ID endpoint. The destroy route is used to delete a product record with a specific ID using the destroy method in the product controller. These routes serve as the entry points to our website, allowing us to retrieve, view, create, update, and delete product records. And now for our orders model. First we will need to create our orders table using the PHP artisan make migrate create orders table. After that we will create our order model, using the PHP artisan make model order command, and then we will create our controller using the PHP artisan make controller order controller command. Now let's add our order columns. Our first one we will add an enum column called status. An enum is a string object with a value chosen from a list of permitted values that are enumerated explicitly in the column specification at table creation time, so inside of it we will add pending, delivered, out for delivery, cancelled and accepted. Next we will add our foreign keys which will be user ID and the location ID. But first we forgot to add a default value to our enum, so let's add one and we will make it pending. Next we will add the total price of type double and we will make it take 12 number with 2 of them being decimals. Then we will need our date of delivery column and let's make it a string. Now let's add the foreign ID of the user and the location. Next let's go to our order model and start working there. First we will need to add our fields, so let's add the user ID, location ID, total price, date of delivery and status. Then we will need to add our relationship, so let's add the user relationship and we will make it a belongs to relationship, as every order belongs to one user, and we will specify the foreign key as the user ID, and then we will do the same thing to the location. Now let's go to our order controller. The first function we will need at the index function. Inside of it we will get all the orders using pagination and we will set it to 20, and then we will return them as a JSON. But we will need to send the users with them too. So we'll edit our orders retrieval and we will add the with method, which retrieves the users associated with the orders by using the users relationship. Now for the show function will the ID parameter with it, and it will be used to search for a specific order, so inside of it we will use the find method to find the order, and then we will return the order that we just found in JSON format. But I think we forgot an important thing we need right now. We need to make the order items table to send the items of that order. So let's create the table using the PHP artisan make table, and then we need to create a model for it. So let's use the PHP artisan make model command. Now in our order items table we will need first the order ID. And then we will add the quantity of type integer, and then the price of that item of type double, and let's set it to 10 and 2. Now let's add the order ID foreign key, and we will also need the product ID, so let's add it to our table. Now in our model we will add the fields, which is the order ID, product ID, price, and quantity. Then we will start adding our relationships. The first one is the order relationship. We will set it to belongs to, as every item is related to one order, and then the product relationship, which is the same as the order one. Now let's go back to our order controller and edit a few things. Now in our order model we need to add the relationship with the order items model. Let's name it items and we will make it has many relationship with the order items model. Now let's go to our controller, and in our index function we use for each method on the orders that we just retrieved from the database. We will need 2 for each on the for the orders, and the next one is to access the items in the order using the relationship. Then we will need to get the product using the where method, and we need to pluck the name of that product. The pluck method retrieves only the column that we specified inside of it. So in our case it will fetch only the name of the product, and then we will assign that name into our order items. We are doing this to send the name of the product to our front end with the order items, and then we will just return the orders that we have. And if there is not orders, we will send a message that there is no orders. Now let's make our store function. First we need to get the location of the authenticated user, so we will use the auth ID method, which is a Laravel method, to get the authenticated user ID. And then we will write our validation rules. After our rules, we will need to make a new order object and then assign the fields we have to it, like user ID and location ID, total price and date of delivery. But let's first edit the date of delivery in our migration. Then we will save the new order object. For the order items, let's add them to the validation instead of the product ID. And let's use a for each, as the order items will be sent as an array. After that we will make a new order items object and will assign to it the data that we have: first the order ID, then price, product ID and quantity. Then we will save it to our database. After that we need to get the product to edit its quantity, so we will use the where method and then we will edit its quantity and save it. After that we will return a response JSON with a message order is added and we will catch any exception we have and return the error message. Now let's make a new function to get the order items. We will need the ID of the order to get its items. First we will get the order items based on the order ID that we just received using the where method. Then we will get the product name just like we did in the index function. We will pluck the name and then add it into the order items. But first let's add some if conditions. So we will add if order items and we will do all that, but what if there is not items? We will just return a no items found message. Now let's make a new function to get a specific user orders. First we will need to get the user order by using the where method on the user ID and then we will get the items of the orders using the with method. Inside the with method we will use a closure function to filter it by descending order using the created at column. And then we will chain the get method to retrieve it. Now we will say if orders, and inside the if we will use a for each for the items to retrieve the product name just like the previous function. And then we will return the orders if there is any, and if there is no orders we will just return a message and no orders found for this user. Now for our last function in this controller, we will make a function to change the order status. We will need the ID of the order and the request object. We'll find the order from the ID using the find method, and then if there is an order we will update its status. And our AI assistant wrote the update for us with its return, but let's just edit the update into a cleaner way. Both ways works, but I like this one more. And then we need to return a message if there is no order with this ID, and we will return order was not found. Now let's go to our routes and let's add a new route controller, and add our function to it. First we will add the index and then the show with the ID, after that the store method, and then the fet order items with the ID, the get user orders with the ID, and the last one is the change order status with the ID. Now let's add prefixes to our routes so we can access them more easily, and to be more organized, the first we will add a prefix to our brand's routes. We will add a new route group, and inside of it we will define the prefix that we want, so let's say brands, and then we will do the same things to the other routes. So let's go to our category routes, and add a prefix to it, and let's make it category. Then we will go to our location routes and add the new prefix and name it location, and the same thing. For our product routes, we will name its prefix product, and for our last group of routes, which is the order routes, we will name it orders. Now after we have added our prefixes, we will need to use the PHP artisan migrate fresh command to add the tables to our database. Now let's test our application using Postman. Okay, we forgot to turn the server on. Let's go to our terminal and write PHP artisan serve command to run our server, and then let's go back to Postman, and after our local host we will add API/brand/index to get all the brands that we have, and the method is already set to the get method. And after we press send we can see that there is no data because it is a fresh database and it's still empty, so let's add a new brand using the store route. Let's make the method post and a brand name and then hit the send button, and now we got the response brand added. Now let's retry the index route and change the method to get, and as we can see we will get the brand that we just added. Now let's add a new category and let's name it Apple, but there will be a validation error because we forgot to add an image. So let's go to the body and add a file, let's name it image, and let's choose any image from my laptop, and then we will add a name, let's say Apple, and then we will hit the send button. Okay, we forgot to specify the table in our category model, so let's go to our category model and add a new protected variable with the name table, and give it the name of the table as a value, so let's say category. Now we will hit the send button and category is added. Now let's register a new user to our database so we can make orders. So let's first remember what did the user need. He needed name, email and password, so let's go to Postman and add a name, email and a password, and then we will hit the send button and now our new user is created and added to our database. Now let's log in using that user so we can get the access token, so we will just edit the name of the root to log in and hit the send button. Now that we got our access token, we need to copy it and go to the authorization section, and then add that access token so now our Laravel application will know who is the authenticated user. Now let's add a new product so we can make an order. We will use the product root, and then store. Let's see what are the product fields. So first it needed a price and let's say 200, and then let's add a category ID which is 1, and brand ID which is also 1. It also needed a discount but let's try without it, because it is not required, and let's remove the required from the validation rules. And now let's hit the send button, and we got an error message. We forgot to add the amount column, so let's add an amount and let's say 20, and then hit the send button and now our product is added to the database. Now let's try our product index root to see if there is any products, and let's hit the send button and yes there is one product that we just added. Now let's make a new order. First we need to remember what we needed in our order controller, so we need the order items, total price, quantity and date of delivery. Let's go to Postman and let's write a raw body and make the type to JSON format. Let's first add the total price, and let's set it to 200, and then we need to add the quantity, let's say 10. And then we need the date of delivery and let's just set any random date, and then we need to add the order items. The order items will be an array of objects, and we are doing this to add multiple products together, so inside of it let's add the ID of the product and then the quantity and finally the price. Then we will hit the send button. But we got an error as we forgot to add the order root when we made our prefixes, so let's edit it. And let's go to our location controller and edit the store method and edit the way we will add a new location. Then after that let's go back to Postman and add a new location because we need to make a new order. Now let's try to add a new order again. As we already wrote the body, we will just edit the URL and hit the send button. There is an error with the quantity as we named it in our product model amount not quantity, so let's just edit it in the order controller, and then let's retry, and now the order is finally added to our database and we made a new order. Now let's try to change the order status. We will pass it the ID of the order and the new status, so let's say cancelled, but we wrote the URL in the wrong format. We need after the change order status write a slash and then the ID of the order. So let's say 1 and now the order status has been changed. Now let's try to get the user orders. Let's get the orders of the user with the ID 1 and let's try it. There is an error in our order controller with the relationship. Let's go to our order controller and in our get user orders function we will edit the with method into an arrow. And let's edit our query a little and remove the order by as we don't need it. And then in our for each we need to use 2 for each not 1. Because the first one is to go through the orders and the second is to go through the items that we have. And now after we made our changes let's go back to Postman and press the send and now we got the user's orders with the items and the product name inside of it. Now we need to protect our roots using a middleware because now anyone can add and update and see our application. So let's make a new middleware for the admin. We will use the make middleware command and name it admin middleware. Now let's go to the admin middleware file, and inside of it we will say if the authenticated user is an admin then let him go to the root, but if he is not an admin, don't let him go, and send him a JSON response saying you are not an admin. Now we need to go to our user migration and add the admin column. Let's make it boolean and the default value is 0, so if he is an admin it is 1 and if not it is 0. Now let's use the migrate fresh command to add the admin column and refresh our database, and we need to add the is admin to our fiable in the user model. Now we need to register the is admin middleware in our kernel, so let's go into our kernel in the HTTP folder, add a new middleware, let's name it is admin and add its namespace. Now the is admin middleware is registered and we can use it, so let's go to our roots and add to every root the appropriate middleware for it. So for every route we will chain the middleware method to it and specify the middleware that we want. So for the get order items route we will add the isAdmin middleware, and now only the admin can access this route, and the same thing for the get user orders and change order status, and for adding brands and categories and to see all the orders. But for the make a new order route we will need to use the auth middleware, as this route is only for users not for admins, and the same thing for the index and the product controller and the show methods, and for all the location routes because the user is the one that adds the location. Now let's run our application and test our routes. Let's first register a new user since we refreshed our database and it's empty, and then let's log in and get the access token of the user, and add it into the auth section. And now let's try to add a brand with the regular user that we have. And we get "you are not an admin" response. Now we will go to our database and edit the isAdmin column and make it 1, and then we will retry, and now the brand is added because this user is an admin and can add a new brand. Now this is the end of our project. If you have any problems or suggestions on how to make this kind of projects or any new course or video idea that you want me to cover, please add a comment and tell me. Thank you for watching and check my channel for more Laravel content.